Hello friends, welcome back to the shop. Today is Sunday, March 19th, and I hope you're all having a very pleasant weekend. And for those of you that enjoy such things, I hope you had a great St. Patrick's Day. I had a fine time. I've got some Irish in me. My grandmother, her maiden name was McCall, and she was very proud of her Irish heritage. And rest of the family, not so much. So it's always been sort of a minor holiday for me, except for when my grandmother was still with us. Then it was we were kind of forced to wear green and things like that. But it's fun, and it's a nice day for me because I get to remember her, and yeah, just did some of the typical things you would do on St. Patrick's Day. Nothing too crazy, but it was a nice time. It's always good, especially when the weather's been the way it is. We still have snow on the ground. It snowed yesterday a bit, not to any great extent, but there were snow flurries in the air. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to cut loose a little bit and have some fun. So yeah, speaking of weather, tomorrow is the spring equinox. So spring officially begins tomorrow at I think 6 a.m.-ish, so somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, Eastern Standard. And yeah, boy, it's been a long time coming this year. We got some teases there a few weeks ago, and then we just fell right back into winter. And it doesn't look like winter is going to be giving up its grip easily, but I just can't wait to go fishing. It's been a long winter, and I didn't fish at all last year, so this is going to be a really special season for me because it's been so long. 8 o'clock coffee. Hercules XL 7LE second brand, very nice pipe, and Carter Hall. Sort of a routine morning combination for me. So let's see, a couple things I wanted to talk about today. The main thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know where this is going to go, but I wanted to talk a bit about the problem with perfection. And I'll get into that. But before I do so, I wanted to do a couple of shout-outs to two guys. Just they're people that I've seen that I think other people should be seeing. And I always worry when I do this because there's so many people out there that I'd like to talk about and I can't. And you won't understand that. But occasionally I realize that there's somebody that I really would like to draw attention to, or somebody new that I think deserves some attention. And in this case, I got one of each. So the first guy I want to give a shout out to is a guy who's been around for over a year now, I believe, and I've been watching him for at least a year, and he's an extremely talented pipe restorer and cob modifier. And the guy I'm talking about is Badger Piper, Brian. And Brian just does some really nice, solid work. His pipe restorations are fantastic. His cob mods are really neat. I mean, he's constantly kind of pushing the envelope on what you can do. He does what I would call traditional cob mods, so he's not doing anything really outlandish, like turning the cob into a steamship or something. But he's doing nice work, and he's trying out different stem materials and different ways of making different shank materials, different ways of making shanks. And I've learned an awful lot watching Brian, both in terms of his cob modding and his pipe restoration work. And the best thing about him is that he just is so willing to share the information. He's a great guy, and I know a lot of you already watch Brian's channel, Badger Piper, But if you haven't seen him, I really highly recommend, especially if you like the kind of videos that I do, the pipe restoration stuff or the cob modding. He's got stuff that's just as good as mine and really well worth watching. So I'll put a link down below and up above to Badger Piper. Go check him out. The other guy that I'd like to draw your attention to today is new. He's only got a handful of videos up, and his name is Gator John, and his channel name is Gator John 65608. I love it when they put a long string of numbers after the name. It just makes it so memorable. John's really looking like he's going to be quite a good addition to the community. He's colorful. He's got some good pipe smoking history behind him. He's got a lot of interesting things to talk about. He's only put up, 3, maybe 4 videos, but they've been really a lot of fun to watch, and nice, comfortable style. Nothing over the top, nothing too fancy, but the kind of video that I like. Somebody just sitting back talking to you, telling you a story about something that happened to them, telling you what kind of tobaccos they like. I think it's the thing that most of us look for in a YouTube pipe smoking video. So check out Gator John 65608, and again, I will put a link up above and a link down below. Go see both these guys and give them a subscription. They're both worth it. All right, so perfectionism is a problem, and I don't mean this. So there's 2 ways to think about. Somebody can be a perfectionist in 2 ways, really. You could say somebody that does absolutely perfect work is a perfectionist, and that's not what I'm talking about. That would be sort of me saying, look, I do this fantastic thing. No. The other kind of perfectionist is somebody that just never is done. And that's a disease that I've suffered from my whole life. You do something, you look at it and you say, there's just this little thing that I need to tweak. And then you go back in and you work on it some more. And then you look at it and you say, there's still this little thing over here. And you go back in and you work on it some more. And, I've had perfectly fine cars when I was much younger that I fixed to the point where they didn't work anymore. This is not a good thing to have. And I'll tell you, when it comes to working on pipes, it's really a terrible thing to have, because you got to realize that these things that we're dealing with are not perfect to begin with. They're really not. The factory-made ones, at least to a degree, are similar and symmetrical and, in some ways, well, factory-made. But the ones that are hand-carved and where the stems are hand-fitted and things like that, they're not perfect. They're not going to be perfectly symmetrical. There's going to be, quote, flaws in the work. And when you're taking an estate pipe and trying to restore it to new condition, or something that approaches new condition, you can really get hung up on potential flaws that you're trying to fix that maybe shouldn't be fixed. And I'll give you 2 examples that happened to me recently, and these are this is the reason why this has been on my mind, because these are 2 things that just occurred over the past couple of weeks that kind of relate to this point. And it's 2 examples it's an example of a time when you should try to fix something, and an example of a time when you shouldn't. So the first one, I was working on a pipe just this past week, and this was a beautiful pipe, new old stock, unsmoked, and in perfect condition. And basically, the guy wanted me to clean it up for him, and because it had sat on a shelf for a long time, so it was a little dingy, needed to be polished up and cleaned, had to get the dust knocked off. So, I was really happy to do this. I thought it was going to take me very little time. And I sat down with the pipe and I started to clean it. And if you've watched my videos, I usually use some. Now I usually use some Murphy's oil soap, a coating of that, and then I take that off with some damp cloths. And it's a very gentle way of cleaning the exterior of the pipe. It works really well. And so I started to do this, and as I was applying the Murphy's oil soap, I noticed that along the shank, this area just darkened more than the rest of it. There was just a little line there. And as I looked closer at it, I realized that the shank actually had a crack in it. And this is really unfortunate because the pipe is unsmoked. It's in beautiful condition, and here it's got a cracked shank. And I looked at that and I thought, well, the reason why nobody drew this to anyone's attention is that you just can't see it unless you add something like oil soap, and it darkens the area a little bit. And I had to make a decision as to what to do, because it was structurally okay. It wasn't going to fall apart or anything. I could have just let it dry out and nobody would have known it was there, because unless somebody else was doing exactly what I was doing. But there's the chance that down the road this is going to crack, and it's going to lead to a bigger problem. It's going to split up the stem. So I had to fix it. I had to basically insert the stem. Wasn't enough. Just putting the stem in wasn't spreading the crack at all. So I had to make a little mandrel that I could put in there that was just sort of slightly tapered. Just slightly open up the crack, put some CA glue in there. It clamped itself when I took the mandrel out. It's a very tight seal. And it basically made an invisible repair. But the point is that had to be done. There was a defect there that was probably there from the time it was manufactured. It needed to be fixed, or else the pipe was going to not perform as intended. At least at some point in the future, might not perform as intended. The shank might split. And this was a case where a band isn't necessary, but I told the owner to keep an eye on it. If it does start to crack again, we can go back in and put a band on. So that's an example where, intervention was necessary, and I think the perfectionist disease comes in handy. I had another pipe, which was an estate pipe that I was working on for myself, so this is not a customer pipe, thank goodness. And it was a vulcanite stem, and I don't know if you know, but, well, there was a little scratch in the stem. Very little. In fact, almost microscopic. And probably nobody would notice it, but it was there and it bothered me. So I decided to start trying to sand it out. And as I was sanding it, it got bigger. And I thought, well, that's odd. I'm going to have to sand it out some more. So it wasn't a crack. It wasn't a scratch. It was actually an inclusion in the vulcanite. And this is rare, but it does occur on some lower grade vulcanite. This was a no-name basket pipe that I got in a lot. It was nothing special. The way they make vulcanite is that I don't really understand the process completely, but at some point there's a foil that's put down. Maybe the vulcanized rubber is poured on top of the foil and then allowed to set. And then when they make things like Cumberland, that is rolled, and the foil it's a very thin foil, and if I don't remember the full story, but somehow or the other, little flakes of that can get stuck to the vulcanite. And I think they do roll that sheet into a rod then, and that's how it's made. So inside of the black rubber, you can have a little piece of foil, which is what this turned out to be. Well, at this point, I had made it very obvious that it was there, and I had basically ruined the stem. So now I got to make another stem. But that's, it's okay. It was my pipe. It wasn't a big deal. And I'll make a stem when I have the time to do it. We're just trying to quickly clean this guy up. So there's a case where the disease of perfection really works against you. It would have been best to just leave that alone. So the question is, where do you draw the line? And how do you draw the line? And when you're working on other people's pipes, how do you draw the line? And that's the one that I really do struggle with. And I guess the point is, I really value the input that I get from people. Especially when folks see the videos that I'm making on the various restorations. Sometimes I'll get input like, have you considered doing this? Or when I do it, I do that. And those are great. I really, really appreciate it because it gives me, it builds my toolbox. It gives me ideas that I wouldn't have otherwise. But sometimes you get input like, I don't like that. I wish you would have done this other thing, or that color doesn't look good or something, and those are rare. I guess they're rare in part because people just don't like sharing that kind of feedback. But it honestly is helpful because it helps me set my scale. When do I know where to stop? If I show you something and you don't think it's up to par, you've got to tell me. And that's true whether I'm restoring a pipe for you personally or I'm restoring a pipe in a video. I won't say that I want to be perfect because you can't be perfect, but I want to be good enough. And I'm always going to be better than that just because I can't settle very easily. But yeah, it would be good to stop before ruining something. Okay, well that was a bit rambly. I hope you got the gist of what I was trying to get at there. It's an interesting problem to have, and I'm sure we all suffer from it in some aspect of our life. It's always been anything that I'm working on, whether it's something I'm writing or something I'm repairing or something I'm making. It just always has been a problem. Classic example is if I'm cooking and I'm adding spice and it's not enough, it's too much. I should have stopped 2 not enoughs ago. Okay. So that's enough therapy for me for today. I hope you found that somewhat interesting, and if you'd like to comment on it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you want to make a VR on it, that would be great too. Would love to see you talk about your thoughts on the subject. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the subscriptions and all the fine comments. I really do appreciate them all. I hope you're enjoying the latest videos. The Jeremy Larson snowblower pipe project's been a lot of fun, and I'm rendering part 2 today. It's going to be a 3-part series, so you'll see part 2 on Wednesday. And beyond that, I'm going to say have a great weekend. And until next time we speak, I will look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.